There is a message coming through the spiritual channels right now, and it carries the weight of urgency, the trembling frequency of something that cannot wait another moment to be spoken into existence. Your person is panicking in this very moment, and the panic is not quiet, not subtle, not something they can compartmentalize or rationalize away with the practiced defenses they have built around their heart. They are feeling you slip through their fingers like water, like sand, like smoke that once filled the room of their consciousness and now dissipates into an absence they cannot bear. You have changed, and this change has sent shockwaves through the invisible threads that connect soul to soul, heart to heart, energy field to energy field across whatever distance separates your physical bodies. For months, perhaps years, you waited in the doorway of their life, holding space for their confusion, their fear, their inability to choose you with the certainty you deserved. But something shifted inside you recently, a tectonic movement in the landscape of your inner world, and they felt it the moment it happened. Your silence now carries more power than every word you ever spoke in desperation or hope. Your absence creates more presence than your constant availability ever did. They thought you would always be there, a permanent fixture in the constellation of their emotional universe, a reliable constant they could return to whenever fear subsided enough for them to reach out. But you are no longer waiting, and this realization is tearing through them with the force of divine reckoning. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon when he wrote about the shadow self and projection, about how we often fail to see the value of what stands before us until it vanishes from our sight. Your person is living this truth right now, feeling it in their bones, in their sleepless nights, in the hollow space where your energy once resided. Right, they feel it in the comments if this transmission is landing in your spirit right now, if you sense the truth of these words reverberating through your own knowing. You stopped chasing, and in that cessation of pursuit, you created a vacuum so profound that it pulled their attention back to you with magnetic force they cannot resist or ignore. You stopped sending the late-night messages that once reached across the darkness searching for connection, stopped checking their social media presence with the obsessive attention of someone trying to decode hidden meanings in every post and story. You stopped molding yourself into the shape you thought they wanted, stopped dimming your own light to make their uncertainty feel more comfortable, stopped waiting by the phone with that particular quality of hope that borders on self-abandonment. And in this stopping, in this sacred withdrawal of your energy from the space between you, something alchemical occurred in the invisible realms where souls communicate beyond words. They felt it immediately, this shift in the energetic current that had always flowed from you to them, sustaining them even when they pretended not to notice, even when they took your presence for granted like air or water or the ground beneath their feet. Your silence became louder than thunder, more piercing than any accusation, more powerful than any plea for their attention could ever be. The absence of your energy in their field created a dissonance they cannot ignore, a wrongness that pervades their waking hours and follows them into their dreams where you appear with increasing frequency, always just beyond reach, always turning away just as they move toward you. They are sensing the finality of your departure, the genuine nature of your letting go, and it terrifies them in ways they cannot articulate even to themselves. For the first time, they understand that you might actually be done, that the door they assumed would always remain open might be closing, that the love they took for granted might be redirecting itself towards someone who will cherish it, honor it, choose it without hesitation or game playing or the exhausting dance of approach and withdrawal. This realization cuts through their defenses like a blade forged in the fires of spiritual truth, exposing the raw vulnerability they have spent so long trying to avoid. The panic is not logical, not something they can talk themselves out of with the rational mind that has kept them safe but alone. They thought you would always be there, a permanent fixture in the landscape of their emotional reality, someone who would wait indefinitely while they worked through their fear, their commitment issues, their inability to meet love with the open-hearted courage it demands. You were the constant they measured everyone else against, the standard by which all other connections fell short, the safe harbor they could return to whenever the storms of their own making became too intense to navigate alone. But constants can become variables when taken for granted long enough, when treated as optional rather than essential, when left in the waiting room of someone's heart while they explore other possibilities or hide behind walls of protection that ultimately protect nothing but loneliness. Your absence has created a shock in their system, a jarring recognition that shakes the very foundation of their assumptions about the nature of your connection and the permanence of your patience. They are experiencing what Carl Jung described as the collision between ego and reality, the moment when our projections shatter against the hard truth of what we have lost through our own actions or inactions. The person they thought would always understand, always forgive, always hold space for their confusion has stepped back into their own light, their own life, their own journey of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete them. This was not supposed to happen, not in the narrative they had constructed where you played the role of devoted supporter while they played the role of complicated protagonist too wounded to commit, too special to be held to normal standards of reciprocity and respect. But you rewrote the script without asking their permission, claimed your power without waiting for them to grant it, chose yourself with the same fierce devotion you once directed toward them. And now they are left holding the emptiness of their own choices, feeling the weight of opportunities squandered, moments wasted, love rejected in favor of safety that turned out to be just another form of prison. They replay conversations in the middle of the night, searching for the exact moment when your energy shifted, when your eyes changed, when your voice carried that new note of finality they had never heard before. They scroll through old messages looking for signs they missed, warnings they ignored, declarations of boundaries they dismissed as temporary frustration rather than genuine transformation. The realization hits them in waves, each one more devastating than the last, each one stripping away another layer of denial until they are left naked before the truth. You were the one, and they let you go. They are obsessing over you in ways that would surprise you if you could see inside their mind, inside the loops of thought that cycle endlessly through memories and regrets and fantasies of repair. You occupy more space in their consciousness now than you ever did when you were actively present in their life, pursuing connection, offering love without conditions or games. They compare every new person to you, holding up potential partners against the standard of your energy, your essence, your particular way of seeing them and making them feel simultaneously challenged and accepted. And everyone falls short because no one carries your specific frequency, no one laughs like you or understands their references the way you did or creates that particular feeling of home they took for granted until you withdrew it. They try to move forward, try to date others, try to convince themselves that any connection can become meaningful with enough time and effort, but the attempts feel hollow, performative, like going through motions that once held promise but now only highlight what is missing. No one feels like you, and this truth haunts them like a ghost that will not be exorcised, a phantom limb that aches despite no longer being attached to the body. Their friends notice the change, the distraction, the way their eyes go distant in the middle of conversations when something triggers a memory of you, a reminder of what they had and failed to appreciate. They check your social media compulsively, searching for evidence that you are moving on, dreading and simultaneously hoping to see signs of your happiness without them, needing to know whether you are truly done or just creating space for them to realize what they lost. The not knowing torments them more than any definitive rejection would, because uncertainty keeps hope alive in the chambers of their heart, even as logic tells them they destroyed something precious through their inability to choose you when it mattered. Sleep comes irregularly now, interrupted by dreams where you appear and disappear, where they reach for you and find only empty air, where they speak the words they should have said months ago but you can no longer hear them through the distance they created. Where your energy once filled the spaces between their thoughts, where your presence once created a hum of connection they felt even when you were not physically near, there is now a hollow that nothing else can occupy, a vacuum that pulls at them with the insistence of spiritual law demanding balance and completion. You do not realize the extent to which you were feeding their soul with your attention, your care, your belief in who they could become when they finally stepped into their courage and chose love over fear. This was not your burden to carry, not your responsibility to maintain, but you did it anyway because love gives without measuring, extends itself without guarantee of return, pours forth like water seeking its own level. And now that the flow has stopped, now that you have redirected that life-giving energy back toward yourself where it always belonged, they feel the absence like drought, like famine, like the sudden removal of oxygen from air they had been breathing without conscious awareness. They try to fill the void with other things, other people, distractions and substances and activities that promise to numb the ache or provide substitute satisfaction. But the void remains because it is shaped like you, curved to the contours of your specific essence, and nothing else fits into that space no matter how hard they try to force compatibility where none exists. This is the energetic principle that ancient wisdom traditions understood, that modern psychology is only beginning to acknowledge through concepts like attachment and bonding and the invisible threads that connect us to those we have loved deeply. You created a space in their consciousness, a home in their emotional body, and when you left, you took that home with you, leaving them displaced and wandering in the landscape of their own emptiness. The collective unconscious knows this pattern, has witnessed it across millennia of human relating, the eternal story of loss through neglect, of value recognized only in absence, of love taken for granted until it withdraws its blessing and moves toward more fertile ground. Subscribe now for weekly spiritual guidance that will help you navigate your own journey of divine timing, energetic shifts, and the wisdom that emerges when you finally choose yourself with the devotion you once gave away so freely. If fear was not stopping them, if pride was not holding their tongue hostage, if the walls they built around their heart were not so thick and fortified with years of self-protection, they would speak the words that circle endlessly in the private chambers of their mind, where truth lives unedited and raw. I was wrong, they would say, wrong to make you wait, wrong to treat your love like something I could shelve and return to at my convenience, wrong to believe that you would always be there no matter how long I took to get my life together, or heal my wounds, or figure out whether I was ready for the kind of love you were offering without reservation. I am sorry, they would confess, sorry for every time I chose comfort over courage, sorry for the moments I let you feel like you were not enough when the truth was that I felt like I was not enough for you, sorry for projecting my inadequacy onto your devotion and calling it something other than the gift it was. I need you, they would admit, need you in ways I only understood once you stopped being available, need your presence like the earth needs rain, like the lungs need air, like the lost need direction home. I think about you constantly, they would reveal, in the morning when I wake and in the evening when silence becomes too loud, in the moments between moments when distraction fails, and I am left alone with the reality of what I destroyed through my hesitation and fear. Come back, they would beg if their ego would allow such vulnerability. Come back and let me show you that I have finally grown into the person you always believed I could be. Let me prove that I can love you the way you deserved from the beginning. Let me have one more chance to choose you with the certainty that should have been there from the start. But these words remain unspoken, because the vulnerability required to voice them feels like death to the protective mechanisms that have kept them safe but separate, alone but in control, free from rejection but also free from genuine connection. They hesitate at the edge of reaching out, fingers hovering over the phone, rehearsing messages they never send, hoping somehow you will feel their thoughts across the distance and return on your own. Inside them rages a war between competing forces, between the pride that insists they should not have to grovel or beg for someone to see their worth, and the love that knows you were never asking them to grovel, only to show up honestly and choose you without games. Fear of rejection battles against fear of loss, creating a paralysis that keeps them frozen in the space between action and inaction, between reaching for you and protecting themselves from the possibility that you might reject them the way they once rejected you through their ambivalence and unavailability. They are trapped in the shadow side of their own psychology, caught between the ego that demands they maintain control and the soul that knows control is just another word for loneliness when it comes to matters of the heart. Carl Jung spoke of the integration of opposites, the necessary reconciliation between conflicting aspects of the self that must occur before wholeness becomes possible, and your person is living this process in real time, torn between who they have been and who they would need to become to deserve your return. The ego whispers that reaching out is weakness, that you should come back on your own if the connection was real, that they have nothing to apologize for because they were just being honest about their uncertainty and confusion. But the soul knows different, knows that honesty without courage is just cowardice dressed in more acceptable clothing, knows that uncertainty is sometimes just fear wearing an intellectual mask, knows that you deserved better than the half-hearted participation they offered while keeping one foot perpetually out the door. This internal conflict exhausts them, drains their energy, makes every day feel like a battle between what they want and what they are afraid to reach for, between the life they could have with you and the safety of remaining unchanged, unchallenged, alone but in control of their own narrative. Eventually, something will tip the scales, some moment of clarity or desperation or divine intervention that breaks the stalemate and forces them into action. Pride will finally crack under the weight of longing, fear of rejection, will become less terrifying than the reality of losing you permanently. And they will find the courage to reach across the distance they created and risk the vulnerability they have been avoiding since the beginning. There are indicators emerging in the physical and energetic realms that signal their approach, breadcrumbs of intention scattered across the landscape of returning connection that you might notice if you are paying attention without attachment, observing without investment in outcome. They are watching your digital presence with increased frequency, viewing your stories within minutes of posting, lingering on your profiles in the quiet hours when they believe no one is watching their movements through the virtual spaces where your life continues without them. Their friends might mention you in passing, probing for information about your current state, whether you are seeing someone new, whether you still think about them, questions designed to gauge whether the door remains open or has closed permanently. You might feel sudden, intense waves of them entering your consciousness at random moments, their energy pressing against yours across whatever distance separates you, their thoughts creating ripples in the collective field that connects all beings who have shared intimate space and time together. Synchronicities increase, their name appearing in conversations, their favorite song playing when you least expect it, repeated number sequences that carry meaning in the symbolic language of the universe speaking through seeming coincidence. They might send small signals, indirect communications that stop short of actual contact but create openings for reconnection, liking old photos, responding to mutual friends' posts where they know you will see their comments, creating situations where your paths might cross without them having to risk direct rejection. Their energy feels different now, less guarded, more desperate, carrying the frequency of someone who has finally broken through their own resistance and decided that pride is too expensive when the cost is losing you forever. You might sense them reaching for you in dreams, in the space between waking and sleeping where souls communicate without the interference of ego and fear, where truth travels unfiltered by the rational mind that insists connection must follow certain socially acceptable patterns and timelines. But here is what matters most in this moment of approaching contact. Whether they reach out or not, whether they finally find the courage to speak the words that have been building inside them like pressure seeking release, you are no longer waiting with breath held and life suspended for them to make their move. Share this message if you feel their energy shifting, if you sense them moving toward you through the invisible channels that connect soul to soul across all apparent separation and distance. You hold the power now, not as weapon or leverage, but as natural consequence of choosing yourself, of reclaiming the energy you once poured into the empty vessel of their indecision, and redirecting it toward your own healing, your own growth, your own magnificent becoming. The dynamic has shifted completely because you shifted it through the simple but profound act of releasing attachment to outcome, of loving yourself enough to stop accepting crumbs when you deserve the whole feast, of understanding that your worth is not determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. You do not owe them your waiting. Do not owe them another chance simply because they finally woke up to what they lost. Do not owe them the acceptance of their apology if your heart has moved beyond the need foe. R1. Your peace is the priority now. Your wholeness is the goal. Your alignment with your own divine path is more important than any reunion that would require you to diminish yourself, to ignore red flags out of loneliness, to settle for someone who only chooses you when the alternative of losing you becomes too painful to bear. And here is the paradox that contains profound spiritual truth. Whether they return or not, whether they show up transformed and ready or remain trapped in the same patterns that drove you away, you have already won. You won the moment you chose yourself, the moment you recognized that love without reciprocity is not sustainable, the moment you understood that being alone is infinitely preferable to being with someone who makes you feel alone. You won by doing the inner work that transformed your relationship with yourself, by becoming whole enough that you no longer need someone else to complete you, by healing the wounds that once made you willing to accept less than you deserved because you had not yet learned to give yourself the love you kept trying to source from others. They might come back ready to love you properly, and you might choose to open the door if it feels aligned with your highest good and they have done the necessary work to show up differently. Or you might discover that you have outgrown the connection entirely, that the person you have become in their absence no longer resonates with who they are, that closing that chapter completely is the most loving choice for everyone involved. This story is reaching its climax, approaching the moment of convergence where all the energetic threads that have been weaving through the invisible realms finally manifest in concrete reality, where potential collapses into actuality, where what has been building in the spiritual dimensions crosses over into the physical world of action and consequence. The universe is orchestrating this finale with precision, aligning circumstances and consciousness, removing obstacles and creating pathways, ensuring that what needs to happen will happen in divine timing, even if that timing does not match your human preferences for speed or certainty. Either they will come back honest and humble and ready to love you the way you have always deserved, having done the inner work necessary to transform their fear into courage, their ambivalence into commitment, their pattern of withdrawal into steady presence. Or you will close the door with peace in your heart, with gratitude for the lessons learned, with clarity that their inability to show up was never a reflection of your worth, but rather a mirror of their own unhealed wounds and limitations. Both outcomes are victories because both outcomes honor you. Both outcomes demonstrate that you have integrated the wisdom of this experience and emerged stronger, clearer, more aligned with your truth than you were before this person entered your life and challenged you to grow beyond your previous understanding of love and self-worth. You are no longer the person who waited indefinitely for someone to choose them, no longer the person who made excuses for behavior that did not match words, no longer the person who believed that love requires suffering or that patience means accepting disrespect. The universe is aligning you with what you truly deserve, which might be this person transformed, or might be someone entirely new whose energy matches yours without struggle, or might be a period of sacred solitude where you deepen your relationship with yourself and prepare for a love that arrives without games, without confusion, without the exhausting dance of approach and withdrawal that characterize this connection. Trust the unfolding, trust the timing, trust that you are exactly where you need to be in this moment, doing exactly what serves your highest evolution. Whatever comes next, you are ready, you are worthy, and you are walking the path that leads to your greatest good.